Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with the final hot take of the day. This hot take is about, well, it's mostly about Antifa again. And just the general sort of leftist strategy and how I think to approach them, or to approach the people who are kind of out of control. So today there's been some news stories. One of the big stories going around is the kid who's about 7 and his mom were in Delaware, and they were part of, they might have been a part of a counter protest or something for Biden, you know, doing the DNC thing down in Delaware. And 2 girls just came out and they argued with the mother, who was a Trump supporter. They took her sign, they ripped it up. They then took the little boy's hat. And you watch the video, and you can Google it and find it yourself. It's really too much. Those girls really went too far. They should not be taking a little boy's hat. He obviously is not a partisan in this, regardless of what his mother thinks. And for them to traumatize him in this way is just wrong. It's just wrong. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care what the kid was doing or what he was wearing. You don't take a little kid's hat, okay? You don't take a little kid's property. He's crying, he's upset, he's telling his mother to call 911. Today, or I think recently, one of the women was charged. She was charged with assault. She was charged with endangering a child, which I think is appropriate in this case, and, like, you know, minor robbery and stuff. I mean, it's just a disgrace that these people are so possessed in their politics that they would just, they rationalize anything. They rationalize essentially traumatizing a young kid for no reason, really no reason. There's no good reason to do that. And this mentality, I think, is part of what drives Antifa and these riots. These people are possessed, and they need to be arrested, because what arresting will do for them is, hopefully, if they sit in a cell for a little while, it'll give them some time to reflect. Is this what I want to really do with my life? Is this really worth it? You know, are we really living in, you know, post-America or whatever they think they're living in? And I think, you know, just letting them go is a huge mistake, because it's creating a system, at least in Portland, where, you know, if you just are on the right political side, they'll let you do whatever you want. But if you're on the wrong political side, oh, they're going to get you. So I think it's a supremely stupid idea for right-wing groups to fight Antifa in the street from a strategic standpoint. I think it's supremely dumb. You guys are falling into a trap, and you're actually helping these protesters, because what Antifa's strategy is to egg people on to attack them. And you want to do the opposite. You want to not attack them and let them do the attacking, so they're always in the wrong. Now, part of the problem with that is they have the media on their side, so the optics always go their way regardless of what happened. However, there is another layer to those optics. Most people are not, they're not really following the news through those mainstream channels anymore anyway. So if you just, for instance, instead of going to confront Antifa and fighting in the streets, if you just showed up early in the morning, and it would have to be very early in the morning, like 6 a.m., as soon as the sun rises, and you just went through the streets and cleaned up, and you helped store owners remove graffiti, and you know, fix their windows and fix their things, and, you know, help them in any way, like repair the city, and you did that on a big scale, then this would help the city, and you would get the same sort of bump you would get from confronting Antifa in the street. The people who are still left, who are sane, who don't support this rioting, would say, oh, thank God, someone's here to help me. The fighting won't do you any good, because what the fighting will do is eventually the cops come in and arrest everybody, and then the prosecutors will let the Antifa guys go, and they'll keep the right-wing guys and say, aha, you started this all by yourself. So you're falling into a trap by confronting them openly in the street and physically fighting them, because it's not going to matter who started the fight. It's just not. However, if you do go in with essentially no weapons, and you're there to repair the streets and clean up, and you do that night after night after night, you're kind of canceling out what Antifa does. You know, you're kind of canceling it out, and eventually normal people hopefully will continue to help you. You know, because as a normal person myself, or semi-normal, I would not jump in on these protests where you're fighting. F that. I'm not going to get punched in the face or whatever. But I would if I was, you know, in town and lived in town. If I and, you know, I was out of work, I had nothing else to do, I certainly would come by to help a friend, you know, rebuild the community. And if I lived in the city, I'm not a city guy, but if I did, you know, I might probably be inclined to go, oh, let me help these guys. They're cleaning up trash and whatnot. And that could cause more positive things to happen. And if you got more and more people to do it, eventually it might frustrate the Antifa guys, and it might force them to show up in the daytime to confront you. In which case, they would have to confront, hopefully, a larger number of people, and it would make them ineffective, right? Because it would be like, hey, get out of here. We're trying to fix this building. And they'd be like, oh, don't fix the building. It's racist, or whatever they say. And you would have the moral high ground. And I think, you know, Tim Pool was talking about how this stuff starts, and he saw it in Egypt and whatever. Thing is, in Egypt, you're talking about a country that's been unequal forever. I mean, I don't think there's really been a point in which they had a really flourishing democracy that was pretty equal. It's always been sort of a tool of the U.S. government to buffer, you know, Israel against the rest of the Arab world, at least for the last, gosh, 50 years or so, at least since '68. Prior to that, you know, they had some amount of freedom, but, you know, you can't look at those countries and compare them to the United States. What's going to happen in November is this ends one way or another. Biden really doesn't stand much of a chance unless they cheat, or unless they somehow hobble Trump, or just outright steal the election. In which case, yeah, you might get a civil war then, but you know, the Democrats will pay the price for that. They're going to lose even if they manage to win with Biden. He'll be a lame duck president. They're going to lose the House, they're going to lose the Senate, and they're going to lose everything else. Because, you know, okay, Biden might get to appoint the Supreme Court, but they can only do so much. And it's probably not going to happen anyway. With Trump, you're going to get Trump in, and he's now got 4 years. He can't be reelected. You know, and you've got people who will be overturned in their elections, some of them governors, some of them mayors. And then what do you do? Well, at some point, these mayors are going to say, this isn't doing me any good. This isn't doing my political career any good. Screw it, I'm calling the National Guard. Or they'll call up their governor and say, this isn't doing us any good. So after November, it all changes. And they don't need to do this stuff. And it's a failure anyway. If Biden doesn't get elected, this entire strategy has been a dismal failure, and there's no point in continuing it. It's only going to hurt people down ballot, which it has. And you're going to have the collapse of these cities and states even, because Trump isn't going to give them any money. They're going to come to the federal government and say, well, we need our federal money now. And Trump is going to go, no, we're not going to give you anything. And in fact, if you want federal money, you're going to have to bring in the National Guard. You're going to have to clean up your act. And we're not going to give you a dime until you do. At that point, the governors are going to be like, oh, crap. And then they're going to call out the National Guard. They're going to call in the state troopers, and they're going to say, lock this S down. Lock it down. Get rid of all these protesters. We don't want to see them. And then the opposite's going to happen. You're going to see everybody in the media suddenly forget there's been riots, forget the name Antifa, and you're going to just see them all scooped up and gone to jail. And some of them will face very serious sentences. They don't think they will be. That's the short-sightedness of their, TDS. They think this is just going to go on and on and on. It's not. It all ends in November. But, in the meantime, they're going to continue to bang their chest and conflate things and say, oh, well, we're going to win. This is a revolution, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to be a revolution. Can't be a revolution. You can't turn over the United States like this. Not like this. There's nobody in office who's going to turn over the United States. There's not enough money in the world to stop the billionaires who run the United States. Okay? And they made more money under Trump. Most of them. Now, there's a handful that didn't. Those guys, they got some pretty big pull, but it's nothing compared to the billionaires who run the show. And they're just not going to tolerate it. They're just not going to tolerate a guy like Biden. They don't want the market to implode. They don't want their customers to be jobless. How are they going to make money then? How are you going to make money with 30% unemployment? You can't. How are you going to keep your franchises open and everything else? Can't do it. It's not going to happen. So calm your S. And so the way to beat these leftist rioters is to be the persistence. The guy who runs the persistence, they go in, they clean up places, they register voters, they do things the legal, peaceful way. And it works because he's registered so many new voters. And he's cleaned up neighborhoods, and he's got such a great reputation. And he says, hey, we've cleaned up your neighborhood. Hey, would you like to register to vote? Yeah, we're Trump supporters, and we clean up your neighborhood. And that goes a long way, especially to people who have lived in neighborhoods that the governments there have just abandoned them. They're just abandoned. They're crime-ridden, they're filthy. Somebody comes in with a truck and takes out all the trash in some abandoned house. It's been on your block. It's been an eyesore for years. You know what that does? First of all, that brightens the neighborhood up. And you suddenly have somebody who cares. The Democrats are not doing anything like this. They're not doing anything close to this. They continue on their strategy of just pandering. Oh, well, the other guys are racist, so you got to vote for us, right? I mean, we're the only ones that are good. That only works so long. It worked for a while when Republicans were kind of racist to a degree. I mean, there were some racists in the Republican Party. And they had a reputation for that, for being super uber religious and being anti-gay and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at the history, if you really drill down, if you get past all the media hype, a lot of it's the other way around. The Democrats were very, very racist, especially down south. It all depends on which state you're in, too. I mean, there's a lot of variation state to state. So I'm not trying, don't get all bent out of shape, Republicans and Democrats. I'm not trying to smear you. But this is the era that we're in now. The Democrats have signed essentially a suicide pact. It's a national pact to follow this strategy to the bitter end. The Democrats got to break things until Biden gets elected, and then we'll fix it all. Because then we'll get credit for fixing it. That's their strategy. And if that doesn't work, then the strategy is to break things so badly that by 2024, we'll just be coming back and we'll still be under where we were, back in the Obama days, so they can come out and say, well, see, the Republicans screwed everything up and we're the only ones that can fix it. That's part of their strategy. Unfortunately, that's going to bite them in the ass because it's being seen more and more and more by voters. And they just aren't tolerating it anymore. The Democrats have forgotten the internet. Like Joe Biden, they're too old. They're too staid. They're too establishment. They don't get it. They don't get how this works. They don't get how the optics work. Trump is a master of Twitter, and he gets it. And that's all he really needs to win this thing. So, anyhow, quick summary, right-wingers who are fighting Antifa in the street. Do not fight. Be like Trump. Let them eat themselves.